Bless us that we might continue to help each other and educating one another, that we might continue to fight this pandemic, that we might do so with education and with each and every one of us taking care of our responsibility of making sure that we wear our mask and providing the distance that we were told to do so 6 feet apart, Father, that we might continue to help each other by doing that. And we're so thankful for all that we have, and we're so thankful for the people that are going to be before us at this time, and for the legislation that we're going to be addressing, and any other items that we need to address, Father. Bless us that we might do so with that spirit, that we might be able to make decisions that will benefit the people that are coming before us for help. And Father, we're so thankful for all that we have in this life. We're so thankful for the opportunities that we have. Bless us that we might provide the leadership that is expected of us, that we might do so in a manner that will be pleasing in that sight. And Father, we're so thankful for everything, and be with us in all that we do in our travels, that we might comply with the policies, the laws, and by doing so that we might protect each other as we're on the road, and be with us in all that we do, and be with us now as we discuss the items on the agenda, that we might do so with that spirit, Father, and be with us when the time comes, those of us that have traveled, that we might return to our homes in safety, and also that we might take care of our other meetings, and that we might do so with that spirit, and be with us now as we take care of our responsibilities. We say these things in thy Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you for that prayer. Just as humble to be. Even though we are in position of influence, we still are humbled by the power that is all around us. We are thankful for that. Priscilla, thank you for committee members' their announcements. There are no announcements, then.
Excuse me. Chair? Hello? Yeah, we can barely hear you on this side. It's just, we need to get close to the microphone.
Thank you. That's because I was whispering.
Josh,
No,
this is Delegate, so I'm on the call.
Oh, Sabizza, thank you for being on the call. We just moved our ancient gadget closer to where we can hear each other. Again, going into the new fiscal year, I hope we get to upgrade our equipment. At this time, so we have a full quorum. We have the full membership of the HES on the call. Thank you, committee members. Thank you for being on the call. So we'll go to item number 2, recognize guests and visiting officials. All those folks on the call, please identify yourself.
Good morning, Mr. Tilty on the call.
Good morning, Shanant. This is Tommy Sophie on the call as well from Office of the Speaker.
morning, Chair, committee members. This is Michelle from Department of Health. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. This is Michelle Begay from Department of Justice on the line.
Good morning, Chair and HES Committee. This is Dr. Jim with Department of Health.
Anybody else? If not, then let's go, Ms. Angelica Benali, could you review the proposed agenda, with the committee and all the folks on the call?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. You have, Mr. Chair and members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee, you have your proposed agenda of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee, 24th Navajo Nation Council Special Meeting, August 31st, 2021. Presiding, the Honorable Daniel Eso as chairperson and the Honorable Carl R. Slater as vice chairperson. Place is via telecommunications, Window Rock, Navajo Nation, Arizona. 1, call meeting to order, roll call, invocation, announcements. 2, recognize guests and visiting officials. 3, review and adopt the agenda. 4, review and adopt the journals, none. 5, receiving reports, none. 6, old business, none. 7, new business. A is legislation number 0176-21. B is legislation number 0177-21. C is legislation number 0168-21. 8, close a meeting, announcements, and adjournment. Mr. Chair and Mr. Chair and members of the committee, legislation number 0168-21 did receive the committee report from the Law and Order Committee from yesterday. Thank you.
Motion, Haluna?
Thank you, Ms. Benali, and then, now we have a motion to adopt by Honorable Pernell Haluna. Do I hear a second?
I will second Delegate So.
Oh, is it? Thank you. Second by Honorable Charlene. So, any additions? Honorable Edison Wanika.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. I'd like to add an item to the agenda, the work session for September 2nd to the 4th, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at the Richfield Residential Hall to be addressed to be approved by the committee for travel.
Moving parties. Honorable Haluna.
I accept that addition. Dr. Haluna?
Thank you, Honorable Haluna. Subija, Honorable Charlene So. Do you concur?
Yash, sorry, I was trying to unmute my phone.
Okay, so second to the motion to amend the agenda is concurred by Honorable Charlene. So any other amendments? If not, then Mr. Mose, roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Honorable Paul Begay Jr.
Honorable Paul Begay Jr., Honorable Pernell Halona,
What about Green?
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater,
Delegate Slater, green.
Honorable Carl Russell Slater votes green. Honorable Charlene So, Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Edison J. Ronica, green. Honorable Edison J. Ronica votes green. Honorable Paul Begay Jr.,
Delegate Begay votes green.
Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Chair, a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you. Committee members, thank you for moving on the agenda. 5 in favor, 0 opposed, the chair not voting. So we go to item 4, review and adopt the journals, there being none. We go to item 5, receiving report, there being none. 6, old business, there being none. We go to 7, new business. 8, legislation 0176 -20. Ms. Angie Sabanali.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee. You have your legislation tracking number 0176-21. And this legislation goes on to the Navajo Committee. So you have your proposed standing committee resolution 24th Navajo Nation Council, 3rd year, 2021, introduced by Delegate Daniel E. So as primary sponsor. Tracking number is 0176-21, an action relating to the Health, Education, and Human Services and Navajo committees, approving and supporting the Navajo Department of Health written comments to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services for Regions 6, 8, and 9. Tribal consultation to address issues and concerns that affect delivery of health care and public health services on the Navajo Nation. Mr. Chair, the particular legislation moved on to the Navajo Committee after the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Manali. Committee members, since I'm the sponsor, I would like to defer to Honorable Vice Chair to preside over this particular legislation.
Thank you, Chair. I know that this legislation goes to NABI and there's the potential for us to add it to the agenda starting at 11. I will not be able to get into Window Rock today to sign the committee report. So if you would like Delegate Wanika, who appears to be present, to preside, he may be able to sign it if time is of the issue.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. This is Delegate Wanika. The legislation has been read to the record. Is there a motion?
Motion, Delegate Slater.
Delegate Paul Begay.
Motion by Honorable Slater and second by Honorable Begay. Are there any questions, concerns?
Chair Pro Tem, I would like to hear the agent or the sponsor provide an overview of what the written comments are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. Go ahead, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, committee members. Appreciate the opportunity to bring this particular item to the committee's, review. Michelle Morris, do we have Dr. Jill Jim or another designee to serve as the agent?
Yes, Chair, Dr. Jim is on the line. He can provide a summary. Dr. Jim?
She had not, Ms. Morris, Shadeja, Dr. Jill Jim, you, one of
Yes.
those presiding chair, agent, Dr. Jill Jim is on the, call.
Thank you. Dr. Jim, you have the floor.
Oh, Ikeha, Honorable Renika Adoshina, thank you for that. And then Michelle for this. The Department of Health and Human Services, we are in the meeting the last 2 days, the stacked meeting. And each year they have us provide issue papers. This has been a standing sort of routine for Department of Health, except for last year. I think we didn't have anything that was approved through the committee just because of the pandemic. So I just wanted to share with you that Department of Health, Navajo Department of Health has provided issue papers and make sure that they have a resolution to support the health issues that are impacting the Navajo Nation. And so there are usually 3 regional consultation meetings, and there's usually one major consultation meeting or meeting with all the tribes, and that's usually the important one where I consider that these comments are relevant to provide to Department of Health and Human Services. Consists of several programs under Department of Health. Actually, all of the programs are impacted. Either they receive CDC funding or SAMHSA funding or Indian Health Service funding and so forth. The adult text funding is also from Department of Health and Human Services. And so the programs are usually allowed an opportunity to provide any major concerns that they have to address the Department of Health and Human Services during their tribal consultation. So in the major document, you'll see us addressing the COVID-19 response, asking for more funding for the public health emergency, also increasing capacity for Indian Health Service, also providing education and training to tribal governments responding to a national public health emergency. Also the funding, amending the funding eligibility criteria to accommodate and support tribal nations with large populations. This includes such entities like CDC, where their funding methodology doesn't really support large tribe population. Also establishing and organizing a standard mechanism for national coordination with FEMA. So in this response, what we're asking is for that these national entities come together and coordinate how to respond to a public health emergency. We also have an existing cancer program, the Navajo Cancer Prevention Program. And I know the program manager has advocated for other sorts of cancer that Department of Health can address. Right now, we are addressing breast cancer prevention, and we are seeking increased colorectal cancer funding, as we know that some of these cancer are highly prevalent here on the Navajo Nation. So there's an ask for CDC to increase funding to address colorectal cancer. Indian Health Service, we are asking for support of healthcare facility construction. We know there are several facilities that are not fully funded, like Gallup Indian Medical Center. We know that other facilities are fully funded, but we want to make sure that they're completed on time and making sure that these grandfathered health facilities are funded in the future. So basically just supporting the infrastructure to provide improved healthcare to the Navajo people. We also are addressing the SAMHSA Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Program to address just the aftermath of COVID-19, which includes co-occurring disorders and the necessity for detox services and crisis response. So in the request, that is what we're asking for to support and expand Division of Behavioral and Mental Health Services. And especially when we talk about post-COVID, that we would need a lot of support on that. There's always ongoing needs for health education. Health education is one of our smaller funded programs under Department of Health, and we would like to continue to expand health education because health educators in general can provide a lot of education in the communities and beyond what they're capable of doing if they're not really focused. It's basically prevention of sort of a lot of chronic health conditions. So, and that includes programs like HIV and hepatitis C or some programs that they have. We will be merging an infectious disease program based on the plan of operations. So I know those two programs that will be mentioned under HIV and addressing hepatitis C would need additional funding. We are one of the fairly few programs that are on the outreach portion that receive this sort of funding, but it's not enough to address these increasing cases, not only in relation to HIV, which is still quite low, but there's always a concern, but there's also the sexually transmitted diseases that we're also not encountering higher rates of syphilis during this pandemic as well. And that's going to be included in the CHR budget. Just in general, the HIV budget is a shortfall. We only have a couple of staff that cover the entire Navajo Nation, which is insufficient. So we're requesting about 5 full-time HIV educators. So that needs to be addressed as we are seeing sort of that increase that, as I mentioned. And so that's where we're at with HIV and health education. And then just in general, I think there's a diagram in there, in a couple of pages, you'll see the gradual increase in cases that we work with Indian Health Service on. And then on page 9, you'll begin to see information on special diabetes program where we're asking for the program to receive permanent reauthorization for an additional 5 years, and also trying to increase the appropriation to $250,000. Also recommends, Navajo Nation recommends a larger portion of the proposed $50 million increase to support SDBI, SDPI, community diabetes prevention services. So, and also asking the HHS to reevaluate the funding mechanism by allowing tribes to receive funding through the self-determination and self-governance system as well. The next item, as I mentioned with the CHR, we are working on establishing that infectious disease program, which will be combining HIV, hepatitis C, and STD services and TB into one. And that is part of our request to increase funding capacity for this. Another area we did mention is the CHAP program, which we are applying for that grant. I have that application at my desk for review, and we will get that submitted, but there has to be increase in funding not only for CHAP and also CHRs to be ongoing in relation to providing services to people that are homebound or considered high risk in the community as well. There is also the mention of the RECA filing deadline discrepancy. There is an regarding the Navajo uranium workers program where we're working as a nation to get that reauthorized, and the recommendation is to have an extension and appropriate funding to allow Navajo beneficiaries to file their claims. The circumstances supporting Navajo clients are that it's difficult and arduous process. So I hope there would be a consideration for extension of that deadline as well. And that would complete a brief summary of the issues from the Navajo Department of Health programs. Chair, back to you, or also Honorable So.
Thank you, Dr. Jim. Honorable Chair, do you have anybody else?
Yeah, to let members of the Health, Education, Human Services Committee. No, I don't have anyone else. That would be the extent of the presentation on legislation 0176-21. They are basically written comments to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. in the aspect of tribal consultation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Members of the committee, Honorable Slater, do you have any questions?
Right now, no. I really just wanted to hear the overview from the presenters. So I think it's a good set of written comments that the nation will be submitting. And it's good to see the vision that the department has.
Okay.
Mr. Chair Pro Tem,
Uh,
this is Angie Benally.
Pardon me?
This is Angie Benally.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just for the record, I did, this particular legislation was taken off hold as of yesterday, and this morning it was officially put on record. But I just needed to let the committee know that there were no public comments submitted. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you, Angie. Committee members, do you have any questions or comments? If not, going once? Going twice? Let's go to the board.
Yes, sir. Honorable Paul Begay Jr.
Delegate Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona.
Yeah. Halona votes green.
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater.
Delegate Slater, green.
Honorable Carl Russell Slater votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Daniel Eso. I vote green. Honorable Daniel Eso votes green. Pro Tem, we have a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Leonard. With the passage of 4 in favor, no one opposing, this legislation will be going on to an appeals committee. We'll give the chair back to Honorable Daniel So.
Yes. Chair Lance for presiding over it. Let the record show in the passage of 0176, the vote was 5 in favor, 0 opposed, and the presiding chair not voting. So we'll go to legislation 0177-21. We have as the sponsor Honorable Vice Chair Raymond Smith Jr. Cecilia, are you on the call? I know I didn't give you a heads up on this, but I hope you're on the call.
Mr. Chair, this is Angelita Benally. I did send Honorable Delegate Smith an email, as well as Mr. James Zerling, along with the HES agenda and an attachment of the legislation that Delegate Smith is sponsoring.
Raymond Smith Jr.
Chair Halona.
Honorable Halona.
Mr. Smith has some kind of personal problem this morning, and he's having trouble joining us today.
Okay.
And
Ms. Benally. Ms. Benally.
FYI, Chair.
Yes, Honorable Halona, yes, I acknowledge that.
One more comment. I'm signed on as co-sponsor in case he doesn't show up, so I can push this legislation through.
You have to be in person. You have to have the sponsorship signed for it to be valid. Honorable Halona.
I signed the
Mr. Chair?
legislation already.
This is Jalissa Johnson.
Hello? Ms.
Mr. Chair, this is
Johnson?
Julissa. Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, the legislation was signed by Honorable Pernell Holona earlier as a co-sponsor, and that email was sent out at 10:06 a.m. from legislation email.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Halona, thank you, Ms. Johnson, for being on the call and giving us good direction. Honorable Halona, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Thank you, Priscilla, for giving guidance. Ms. Angelica Benali, could you read the legislation into the record?
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee. You have your proposed standing committee resolution, 24th Navajo Nation Council, 3rd year, 2021, introduced by the co-sponsors of delegates Raymond Smith Jr. and co-sponsored by Delegate Pernell Holona. Tracking number is 0177-21. An action relating to the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee approving and adopting the amended Navajo Nation Veterans Administration Housing Program Policy, NNVA, Veterans Housing Program, Housing Action Plan, and the NNVA Home Improvement Program Policy. Be it enacted, Section 1, Authorities. A, the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee is a standing committee of the Navajo Nation Council, 2 NNC Section 400A. Among other powers, the committee shall review and recommend resolutions relating to the social services, health, environmental health, education, veterans and veteran services, employment and labor. 2 NNC Section 401B6. B, the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee is to promulgate regulations, promote accountability to policies, and provide legislative oversight on matters involving health, social service, education, general government service, and human services. 2 NNC Section 400C1. C, the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee has legislative oversight and will have final approval of the respective plans of operation over the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration and Navajo Nation Veterans Advisory Council. 2 NNC Section 1035 and CJY-55-18. Section 2, Findings. A, the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration and the Navajo Nation Veterans Advisory Committee were established within the executive branch. 2 NNC Section 1031 et al. In the best interest of the Navajo Nation veterans to ensure quality services are provided to the Navajo veterans pursuant to CJA-3-16. B, the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee has legislative oversight and will have final approval of the respective plans of operation over the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration and the Navajo Nation Veterans Advisory Council pursuant to 2 NNC Section 1035 and CJY-55-18. C, the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration, NNVA, in parentheses, establish a plan of operation through HEHSCAU-12-16, which was amended by HEHSCN-16-20. NNVA objectives provide administrative oversight and coordination needed services and programs for Navajo veterans in areas such as housing, education, healthcare, and other related veterans benefits or programs. NNVA Plan of Operations, Section 2A, furthermore, NNVA's purpose includes recommending overall policies and legislations regarding Navajo veterans to the Navajo Nation Council committees that are consistent with applicable Navajo Nation laws and policies. NNVA Plan of Ops, Section 3E. In addition to NNVA shall establish and fund the veterans housing programs for Navajo veterans. NNVA Plan of Ops, Section 3H, attached as Exhibit E. D, the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee established the original Navajo Nation Veterans Housing Program policies and procedures and the Housing Action Plan by HEHSCF-03-18. The HEHSCF-03-18 program policies and procedures were rescinded by HEHSC-04-21, attached as Exhibit A, which also adopted the Navajo Veterans Housing Program Policy, attached as Exhibit B. NNVA Veterans Housing Program Housing Action Plan, attached as Exhibit C. And the NNVA Home Improvement Program Policy, attached as Exhibit D. E, the Navajo Nation Veterans Housing Program Policy, Exhibit B, is hereby amended by Exhibit 1. The amendments are formatted as underline dash strikeout. F, the NNVA Veterans Housing Program Housing Action Plan, Exhibit C, is hereby amended by Exhibit 2. The amendments are formatted as underline dash strikeout. G, the NNVA Home Improvement Program Policy, Exhibit D, is hereby amended by Exhibit 3. The amendments are formatted as outline dash strikeout. H, the amendments provided are to ensure that homes provided to the Navajo veterans undergo the Navajo Nation's Veteran Housing Program shall be in compliant with the Tribal General Welfare Exclusion Act and related IRS guidance. Also, the amendments provide clarification through the housing policies. I, it is in the best interest of the Navajo Nation to approve and adopt Exhibit 1, Exhibit 2, and Exhibit 3 amendments to Navajo Nation Veterans Housing Program Policy, Housing Action Plan, and Home Improvement Program Policy. Section 3, approving the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration Housing Program Policy, NNVA Veterans Housing Program, Housing Plan, Action Plan, and the NNVA Home Improvement Program Policy. The Health, Education, and Human Services Committee hereby approves and adopts the amendments attached as Exhibit 1, Exhibit 2, and Exhibit 3 to Navajo Nation Veterans Housing Program Policy, Housing Action Plan, and Home Improvement Program Policy. Section 4, effective date. This act shall become effective upon its approval pursuant to 2 NNC Section 221B. Section 5, Savings Clause. If any provision of this act is determined invalid by the Supreme Court of the Navajo Nation or by any district court of the Navajo Nation without appeal to the Navajo Nation Supreme Court, the portions of this action not determined invalid shall remain as the law of the Navajo Nation. Thereafter, you have your Exhibit 1, the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration, Navajo Nation Veterans Housing Program Policy, August 2021. That's Exhibit 1. Exhibit 2 is the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration Navajo Veterans Housing Program Housing Action Plan. And Exhibit 3 is the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration Navajo Nation Veterans Home Improvement Program Policy, August 2021. And also attached is Exhibit A, which is the HEHSCAP-04-21, along with Exhibit 1, HEHSCF-03-18, and Exhibit A is the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration Housing Program policies, and procedures. And also Exhibit 2 with the strike-throughs is the Navajo Veterans Administration Housing Program Policies and Procedures with the strike-throughs and the underlining for new language. Also attached in Exhibit 3 is the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration Navajo Nation Veterans Housing Program Policy, January 11th, 2021. And Exhibit C is the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration Veterans Housing Program Housing Action Plan. And one more exhibit D. Exhibit D is the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration Navajo Nation Veterans Home Improvement Policy. It's dated January 11th, 2021. And there should be one more. And Exhibit E is the Plan of Operation for the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration. And Exhibit 3 is the Navajo Nation Veterans Advisory Council Resolution, and it's NNVAC-07-21. And it's regarding the plan of operation. Thereafter, you have your transmittal letter from the Office of Legislative Counsel to the sponsor, along with the record of the legislation being made available for public comment, and the public comments ended, and there were, I believe there were no public comments.
Ms. Benali, does that complete the review?
Yes, yes, I'm looking up the yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Committee members, do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Honorable Edison J. Wanika.
Second, that was Mr. J.
Second by Honorable Paul Begay Jr. Committee members, any questions?
Ms. Helona?
Committee members, even though there's an exhibit attached regarding the Veterans Administration Plan of Operation, the Plan of Operation is not being amended. We are approving and adopting the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration Program Policies, Navajo Nation Veterans Housing Program, Housing Action Plan, and the Home Improvement Program Policy. Committee members, I'm clarifying that as, and we're not amending the organizational chart that are attached as exhibits, just for clarification's sake. Honorable Helona, committee members, as there is a need to amend this particular legislation provided by the Office of Legislative Counsel. Mr. Chad Abeda, are you on the call?
Good morning, Chair. This is Chad Abeda from Legislative Council. I'm on the call.
Okay. Committee members, I need a motion to amend, and then after that, then Mr. Abeda can explain the amendment.
Motion. Chair, could we get a presentation from the sponsors first?
Okay, Honorable Helona.
Thank you, Chair, for the recognition, and we're trying to conclude this housing program for the Veterans Administration so we can get started to try to build some housing for our veterans. I'd like to turn the time over to our agent. Chair? Mr. Zimmerman?
Mr. James Squirline, are you on the call?
Yes, Chair, I am on the call. Good morning, sir.
The legislation has been motioned and second. The sponsor has deferred to you to address the committee.
Thank you, sir. And as again, good morning, and good morning to the members of the committee. The policies that are before you today came before the committee in April, and these policies had gone through the had gone through the Resource and Development Committee prior to being reviewed by the Tax and Finance Unit of DOJ. A different department of DOJ had reviewed these policies and determined them legally sufficient, but the Tax and Finance Unit, specifically Mr. Mel Rodas, reviewed the policies and saw that there were needs for amendments. And again, this was after the RDC committee had considered the policies. And those amendments were prepared in preparation for the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee when these policies were considered, but they were not brought to the table during that meeting. So that is the purpose of this legislation at this time, is to include the provisions within the policies that address the Tribal General Welfare Exclusion Act and related IRS guidance. And with those, the veterans will be protected from capital gains on new home award, as well as major and minor improvements and repairs through our renovation program. So with that, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Squirline. Committee members?
I think you sent it out to
As stated before, Mr. Chattabeta sent us an email to talk about a proposed amendment that he sees that this legislation needs. Committee members, have you reviewed it was sent out by Mr. Abeta at 10:20 a.m.
Chair Salona?
Honorable Salona.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to motion to include these amendments that were sent out by Chad Beta.
Thank you, Honorable Salona. The motion to amend the legislation is recognized. Here, second. Going once. Ms. Angelita Benali, we have a question regarding Ms. Angelita Benali, we have a question by Honorable Edison Wanika on whether he can second the motion to amend the legislation. He has the main motion on the legislation.
If he can second the amendments, yes.
Okay. With that advice from Ms. Angelita Benali that he can second the motion to amend. So I'll recognize that. So Honorable Halona motions and Honorable Edison J. Wanika seconds to amend the legislation. Amendment number 1. Mr. Beta, just a summary on what the amendment would do.
Chair, this is Chad Abeda.
You have the floor.
And so you want me to go ahead and explain a summary of the amendment?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the amendments, there's a lot of inconsistent language. So not inconsistent, but there's a language in the current housing policies the housing policy, or let me start over. So there are 3 housing policies that I listed. It's Exhibit A, B, and C. That's what's current right now. And Exhibit 1, 2, and 3 is amending those previous versions. And so in the current housing, the 3 current housing policies, it talks about the program manager within the legislation, within the housing policies, and the Navajo Nation Veterans Administration does not have a program manager, and so it's deleting the program manager language within the policies, and we're inserting language that and the new language is going to read as the Navajo Nation Executive Director. So it'll be consistent with the current structure. And so that's the first part of that amendment. And so and then the second part is there's going to be an amendment to the policies where individuals, it's called the Sweat Equity Program. And so with that, individuals applicants who are requesting for homes to be built, they can also partake in the construction of their new home. So the amendments will include the sweat equity within the housing policies. And then the third thing is what's going to happen is instead of any amendments, the third thing that's going to happen is the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee will be removed from the housing policy amendments, and so from here on out, if this is approved, it would be the President of the Navajo Nation and the Navajo Nation Executive Director at a duly Veterans Advisory Council meeting. They can amend these housing policies. So we would be delegating the housing policies to the President and NVA and the Veterans Advisory Council. And so from my understanding, it's to streamline the process and to make the housing, building the homes for veterans will be much more smoother and quicker. But those are the three amendments that I drafted. If I missed anything, Mr. Zorline, I'll defer to him right now. Thank you, Chair.
Reminded by legislative advisor that the proposed amendment has to be read into the record. Ms. Angelica Benali?
Yes, Mr. Chair. You have the proposed amendments for legislation 0177-21, and it's sponsored by Delegate Cornell Holona. And the following amendments are Exhibit 1 amendments. It indicates number 1 on Exhibit 1, page 3, line 13, delete Program Manager and insert new language NNBA Executive Director. 2, on Exhibit 1, page 7, line 14, delete Program Manager, insert new language NNBA Executive Director. On page number 3, on Exhibit 1, page 7, line 17, delete Program Manager, insert NNBA Executive Director's new language. Number 4, on Exhibit 1, page 7, line 19, insert new paragraph as follows. 4, sweat equity. The applicant shall participate in the construction of their new home to gain a sense of pride and ownership. Participation may vary based on the applicant's ability to perform various tasks. Hours must be logged by either the applicant, a family member, or the local chapter veterans organization. The number of hours shall be determined by the NNBA Executive Director. Failure to log the appropriate hours prior to the completion of the veteran's home may result in denial of future home improvement assistance or self-help assistance. Number 5, on Exhibit 1, page 8, line 29, insert the new paragraph, new language as follows. B, in order for the home to be connected to existing infrastructure and have that cost covered by the program, each applicant choosing to obtain a home site lease will be required to select a location within 1,500 feet of existing infrastructure, i.e. electric, water. If the applicant chooses a site beyond 1,500 feet from existing infrastructure, the program will require cost matching by the applicant for connections to existing utilities, or else solar and cistern options will be available. Location must be able to support septic systems or have access public sewer systems. 6, on Exhibit 1, page 9, line 5, delete. The Housing Selection Committee shall select potential grantees for the NNVHP projects from the local Veterans Organization Support Resolution period. 7, on page 1, on Exhibit 1, page 9, line 13, insert new paragraph as follows. 3, in order for the program to fully cover the costs of connecting the home to electric and water services, each applicant choosing to obtain home site lease will be required to select a location within 1,500 feet of an existing infrastructure. Number 8, on Exhibit 1, page 12, line 19, delete Health, Education, and Human Services Committee, insert President of the Navajo Nation. Number 9, on Exhibit 1, page 12, line 20, after the, in quotes, insert in new language in NBA and the. Number 10, on Exhibit 1, page 12, line 21, after quote unquote council, insert new language, comma, at duly called Navajo Nation Veterans Advisory Council meeting, period. Number 11, for Exhibit 1, renumber or reletter succeeding paragraphs, sections, and exhibits accordingly if necessary. This amendment shall supersede inconsistent language contained in any other committee amendment, which shall be conformed in the intent or language of this amendment. The Office of Legislative Services, with notice to the sponsor of the legislation, is hereby authorized to make necessary grammatical changes. Exhibit 2 amendment. Number 12, on Exhibit 2, page 2, line 2, delete Program Manager, insert new language, NNBA Executive Director. Number 13, On Exhibit 2, page 2, line 15, delete Program Manager and insert NNVA Executive Director. 14, on Exhibit 2, page 2, line 7, delete Program Manager and insert NNVA Executive Director's new language. Number 15, on Exhibit 2, page 2, line 9, delete Program Manager, insert new language, NNVA Executive Director. Number 16, on Exhibit 2, page 2, line 26, insert new paragraph as follows. New language is Section 7, Sweat Equity. 2, all potential candidates to receive a home under this program shall be required to participate in the Sweat Equity Program. Each candidate shall perform work on their home while it is being built. They will have an option to work on the foundation at their home site, work on the prefabricated panels constructed off-site, or work on the final assembly of their home. Candidates will be required to invest themselves in the construction of their homes, as these homes are being provided at no cost to the veteran. 3, contributions to the Sweat Equity Program do not require that a candidate have working knowledge of home construction. Candidates will only be required to perform tasks that they are physically able to perform and or willing to perform. If a candidate is experienced as a framer or has interest in learning the skill set, they may accept duties that will teach or enhance those skills. If the candidate has physical limitations, less strenuous tasks shall be made available, such as site cleanup or trash removal. 4, in the event that a candidate is not able to perform any aspect of the Sweat Equity Program, they will be required to have a family member, friend, or members of the Chapter Veterans Organization participate on their behalf. 5, it is the intent of the Sweat Equity Program to help build interest and skills in the building trades to foster economic growth while providing jobs and housing to Navajo veterans, and develop and foster the pride generally associated with home ownership. Okay, number 17, for Exhibit 2, renumber or reletter succeeding paragraphs, sections, and exhibits accordingly if necessary. This amendment shall supersede inconsistent language contained in any other committee amendment, which shall be conformed to the intent or language of this amendment. The Office of Legislative Services, with notice to the sponsor of the legislation, is hereby authorized to make necessary grammatical changes. 18, on Exhibit 2, page 5, line 16, after quote unquote amended, delete as required, and all amendments shall be approved by the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee as recommended. Insert new language periodically with the approval by the President of the Navajo Nation. And number 19, on Exhibit 2, page 5, line 17, after in quotes by the, insert new language, NNVA and the. 20, on Exhibit 2, page 5, line 17, after quote unquote Navajo Nation Advisory Council, insert new language, at a duly called Navajo Nation Veterans Advisory Council meeting, period. Exhibit 3 amendments. Number 21, on Exhibit 3, page 7, line 16, delete Program Manager, insert new language, and NVA Executive Director. 22, on Exhibit 3, page 7, line 28, after quote unquote basis, delete the Navajo veteran must submit a local veterans organization support resolution, comma. Number 23, on Exhibit 3, page 7, line 30, after quote unquote out, delete a local veterans organization support resolution will also be required, period. 24, on Exhibit 3, page 8, line 17, after quote unquote sheet, delete, which will include a local veterans organization support resolution, period. 25, on Exhibit 9, line 20, or Exhibit 3, page 9, line 20, delete bullet point as follows: local veterans organization support resolution, period. 26 on Exhibit 3, page 9, line 26, after quote unquote by the delete Health, Education, and Human Services Committee, insert new language, President of the Navajo Nation. 27 on Exhibit 3, page 9, line 27, after quote unquote of the, insert new language, NNVA and the. Number 28 on Exhibit 3, page 9, line 28, after in quote unquote advisory council, insert new language, comma, at a duly called Navajo Nation Advisory Council meeting, period. Number 29, for Exhibit 3, renumber or re-letter succeeding paragraphs, sections, and exhibits accordingly if necessary. These exhibits shall supersede inconsistent language contained in any other committee amendment, which shall be conformed to the intent or language of this amendment. The Office of Legislative Services, with a notice to the sponsor of the legislation, is hereby authorized to make necessary grammatical changes. Mr. Chair, and I believe I noticed two spelling, misspelled words in the legislation itself, and those grammatical changes will be corrected in the resolution. Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Thank you, Sonali. Questions on the amendment?
This is Delegate Slater.
Honorable Vice Chair Slater, you have the teleconference floor.
Thank you. The two main things that concern me are the removal of the resolutions of the CVOs that will recommend veterans for housing program assistance, and then also removing this committee as the entity empowered to approve amendments or updates, edits, deletions to this policy, and then instead makes it the president. So I'd like to learn a little bit more about why those are necessary changes, and if there are Navajo Nation Veterans Advisory Council supporting resolutions for this amendment and for the resolution entirely. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Slater. Honorable Halona.
Thank you, Chair. Let's see, I would like to defer some of that information to Mr. Zerline. And if this is a problem, we can always remove that section. Mr. Zerline?
Thank you, sir. And with the chair's permission, I will read a legal opinion that was rendered from DOJ on this matter. This is from Chris Schneider, dated as recently as Thursday, August 26, 2021.
Mr. Swerline, is Mr. Chris Snyder on the call?
To my knowledge, sir, I cannot answer that question.
Well, we need him to attest to his own legal opinion.
Chair, can we ask Mr. Zerline to send out that opinion?
Yes, Mr. Swerline, please share that opinion by Mr. Snyder to the committee members and to the legislative staff.
I am forwarding that email as we speak, sir. Please give me 1 minute.
What's the attorney's last name, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Snyder.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Director Zwerline. That email has been forwarded, sir.
Committee members, take a few minutes to read that real quick. Reading the email, it's not listed as a legal opinion. And it makes reference to Bob Roth's interpretation. Mr. Chattabeda, do you have any written document referencing within this particular email from Mr. Snyder regarding Ms. Bob Roth's interpretation?
Yeah, the chair, Shinadishna Chadabeda.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Abeda.
Yeah, what I've done on my end is I've sent the legislation as is, and then I sent the Exhibit 1, 2, and 3 to Department of Justice to make sure that it's legally sufficient, and also the floor amendments, and I've inquired on the sweat equity and everything else that's included in the amendments. And Mr. Chris Snyder from DOJ and Mel Rodas, both individuals, have been CCing and also communicating with, and they've said that they've reviewed these documents and they've deemed it legally sufficient. But I've not seen the legal opinion that Mr. Zorland is talking about. Thank you.
Committee members?
Chair Salon?
Honorable Halona, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'd like to modify the amendments to the legislation that on the amendments that we're making to eliminate number 8 on 1 of 3, and also number 20 on page 3 of 3, and page 3 of 3, number 28. To exclude those off the amendments.
Can you repeat that, Delegate Helena?
On page 1 of 3, number 8, where it says Exhibit 1, page 12, line 19, delete health education, insert president nomination. I want to delete that, as well as page 3 of 3 on Exhibit 2, page 5, line 17, after Nomination Advisory Council, insert duly called Nomination Veterans Administration Advisory Committee, and also on number 28, 3 of 3 as well, Exhibit 3, page 9, line 28, after advisory council, insert duly called Navajo Nation Advisory Council meeting.
Committee members.
Chair.
Honorable Vice Chair Slater, you have the floor.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Delegate Galona, for working with the committee here. I think I couldn't quite tell based off what you said, and I was wondering if there is a possibility that let's see, I'm just trying to figure out how we can do this. I would like to see a clean amendment with those deletions that you just identified so that I see clearly exactly what I'm going to be voting on. I think what you've done is remove the sections where the committee will be transferring its authority over to the president, and then also the areas. Well, I'm not quite sure the ones where you're talking about duly called Navajo Nation Advisory Council meeting. I think the committee is supportive of keeping that in there. So I really need to see a clean copy if you're going to be modifying this amendment. And if that's the case, I don't know how long that's going to take. But we have NABI that's going on concurrently. And then we also have legislation 16821, which I would like to move forward to NABI as well. Would it be possible for us to either table this legislation for a week, or is that going to harm the rollout of the program? Or could we, if it is going to take a long time to clean up the amendment, withdraw the motion and second, go to 168, and then come back to this? That's my question, Chair, to the presenter.
Committee members, do you just want to schedule a work session? Honorable Edison Wanika.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. I know this legislation is very important, but because of the time that it's going to take to address the amendments and all that needs to be done, I'd like to go ahead and withdraw my motion.
Thank you, Honorable Wanika. So a motion on the amendment as well as the main motion on Honorable Wanika.
Yes.
So we only have a motion to amend on Amendment 1, and then there is no moving party, committee members. We have motion. Oh, excuse me, it was Purnell, let me see, one. Let's do.
The main motion is you and Paul McGee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Paul McGee was the main.
Okay.
Second to the main motion.
On the main motion, Honorable Wanika made the motion and Paul McGee made the second. And then on Amendment 1, Purnell Alona made the motion and Edison Wanika made the second. Honorable Edison Wanika withdraws the second on Amendment 1 as well as the main motion on the legislation. Committee members, we're back to square one. Do we defer this till the next meeting? Since there is an incomplete...
Chair, this is Delegate So.
Yes.
Can I make the motion to defer this to the next meeting if I'm on the correct grounds? If not, it will be to table to the next HESI committee meeting.
Thank you. Honorable,
I would second the deferment.
thank you, Honorable Charlene. So, motion to defer to the next committee meeting. Second by Honorable Slater. With that, committee members, all in favor of deferment? Mr. Mose.
Yes, sir. Honorable Paul Begay Jr.
Green.
Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Pernell Zalota. Green.
Maloney votes green.
Honorable Pernell Zalota votes green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater.
Delegate Slater, green.
Honorable Carl Russell Slater votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Edson De Ronica. Green. Honorable Edson De Ronica votes green. Chair, I would have 5 in favor to defer to the next meeting.
Thank you. Committee members. So, let the record show a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed to send legislation 0177-21 to the next committee meeting. With that, I call the legislation 0168-21 to the floor. Ms. Angelita Benali, could you read the title of the legislation into the record?
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee, you have your proposed Standing Committee Resolution 24th Navajo Council, 3rd year 2021, introduced by Honorable Delegate Carl Slater. Carl Slater, a sponsor. Tracking number is 0168-21. An action relating to law and order, health, education, and human services, budget, finance, and committee. Approving and authorizing the Navajo Department of Health, Division of Public Safety, and Division of Social Services to pursue entry into the Indian Health Services Self-Governance Program per Title V of the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act, 25 U.S.C. Sections 5301 to 5423. In parentheses, PL 93-638 as amended, close parentheses, by conducting the required planning process and applying for funding resources available from the Indian Health Services. The legislation does have the attached transmittal letter from the Office of Legislative Counsel to the sponsor, and also it's completed its 5-day review public comment, and it also went before the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee. The Law and Order Committee. And there is a committee report that's that was provided, and it's from the Law and Order Committee, and they addressed the legislation 0168-21 on August 30th, 2021, and the vote was 3-0-2. And the report with the vote tally was signed and provided to tracking. And Mr. Chair, there were no public comments received during the public comment 5-day posting. Mr. Chair and members of the committee.
Thank you, committee members. how do you wish to address this legislation? Motion by Honorable Edison Winika. Do I hear a second?
Second, Delegate Begay.
Hakushila, the chair, Honorable Paul Begay, second the motion. Honorable Carl Slater.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, colleagues, for motioning and seconding to consider this legislation. This is a legislation that advances an effort the committee was working on prior to the pandemic. And that was the investigation and planning for the concept of compacting and contracting the services provided to the Navajo area and to the Navajo tribe into one Title V contract that the nation would assume and then administer. So instead of having different potential programs or tribal organizations delivering all of these different services, we would unify them. So we'd reduce competition between, say, tribal organizations like the 638s, and then the direct administration by the Indian Health Service, as well as between the nation and those entities. So over the pandemic, we saw how our response was limited by not having a unified command and control of our healthcare system. So I think that in the future, if we plan this out appropriately and stand up a solid organization that could deliver these services, we will increase the quality of the healthcare that's provided to our people and the other services that are provided by IHS for the welfare and well-being of our people. So this doesn't commit the nation to anything. Rather, it initiates a planning process that will identify, I think, timelines, what sorts of programs and projects may be, or programs and services may be taken over by different committees, different entities. And that is all we're doing. We're not doing anything aside from initiating a planning process. And I think that this is going to be a huge step forward for the Navajo Nation if it's appropriately resourced. And the good thing about this is that these planning processes are reimbursable. So the nation shouldn't be out too much money. Rather, we'll be reimbursed for pursuing this process. I don't want to make this more complicated than it needs to be, but presently, the Department of Health, the Division of Social Services, and the Division of Public Safety all have contracts, and they're the entities that would be involved in moving forward, in addition to the general public, the tribal organizations, and our committee. So, Section 3 really goes into the approvals, and that begins in the bottom of page 2 of 3. And it's really just authorizing those three entities to conduct the planning process and then, pursue reimbursement from Indian Health Service for this self-governance planning and cooperative agreements. So, Chair, we have Dr. Jill Jim, who's the Executive Director of the Department of Health, on the line. And then I also believe that we have, I think it's Ms. Begay from the Department of Justice on the line. And then I was also told that we have Director Delmar on the line. So I am going to end the presentation on behalf of the legislation. And as colleagues have questions, I and my agent, Dr. Jim, and we'll determine who the second one may be depending on the questions that are fielded by the committee. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Slater. Committee members, do you have any questions? Going once? Going twice? 3 times. Mr. Mose, roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. Honorable Paul Begay.
Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Pernell Halota. Honorable Pernell Halota. Honorable Carl Russell Slater.
Delegate Slater, green.
Honorable Carl Russell Slater votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Edison J. Wanika. Green. Honorable Edison J. Wanika votes green. Honorable Pernell Halota.
Lone votes green. This is the last bid.
Pernell Halota votes green. Chair, vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Mose. Let the record show a vote of 5 in favor and the chair not voting. Thank you, committee members. Then we go to an item that was added regarding a work session at Richfield Dormitory, Richfield, Utah, and to meet with the Richfield Residential Hall Board. Committee members.
Motion, Wanika.
Motion by Honorable Wanika to establish this work session and travel.
Second, Alona.
Second by Honorable Pernell Halona. Committee members, do you have any questions? The itinerary and work session was sent out. Committee members, we appreciate staff and Honorable Begay to follow through on these items. With that,
Mr. Chair?
Delegate Begay.
Honorable Paul Begay.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to get one information out to my colleagues and also the staff that are traveling to Richfield to finalize the whole agenda. The planning committee in Richfield would like to get a number, precise number of people that will be traveling. This is so that they can make reservations for the hotel. They will be paying for our room when we're up there for Thursday and Friday nights. So I'm thinking that both, if you're traveling up there, you're planning to stay both Thursday and Friday, unless you have plans to stay only one night. I'd like to also know that, so that way the reservations can be made accordingly. Give that information to Ms. Angelita Benali so that she can relay that information to Mr. Cody Workman to Richfield as soon as we get the information. So they would like to get that information as soon as we can so that reservations can be made. Thank you.
Committee members, it'll be the 2nd through the 5th, the 5th being a travel day. From where I'm at, it's 7 hours and 52 minutes based on Google Maps. Anybody else? If, committee members, please communicate with Ms. Angelita Benali on who will be attending. With that, committee members, Mr. Mose, roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Honorable Paul Begay Jr. Honorable Paul Begay Jr., Honorable Pernell Halona,
Lone votes green.
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green, Honorable Carl Russell Slater,
Delegate Slater, green.
Honorable Carl Russell Slater votes green, Honorable Charlene So,
Green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green, Honorable Edison De Unica, green, Honorable Edison De Unica votes green, Honorable Paul Begay Jr.,
Green.
Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Chair, a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Mose. A vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed, the chair not voting. We go to the close of meeting, announcements, and adjournment. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Motion by Honorable Wanika, Edison J. Wanika. Do I hear a second?
Second, Delegate Begay.
Second by Honorable Paul Begay. No discussion, no debate. Mr. Mose, roll call vote.
Yes, sir. Honorable Paul Begay Jr.,
Delegate Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona,
Lone votes green.
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater,
Delegate Slater, green.
Honorable Carl Russell Slater votes green. Honorable Charlene So,
Green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Edison J. Unica, green. Honorable Edison J. Unica votes green. Chair, vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Adjourned at 11:47 a.m.
Thank you, committee members. We are adjourned, and we go proceed directly to the NUPCS committee special meeting. Thank you. Did we sign it?
He signed it.
Oh, okay.
So it sounds like, well, there's 3 going here. Paul Begay, Halona, I don't know what. Charlene. I think 5 of it, I think maybe 6.
Yeah.
I guess you gotta call somebody. So.
We'll go to the 5th layer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Charles,
Okay.
Not machine?
All right. I think I left the cell phone somewhere, in my personal. Okay.
Thank you. All right, Chair.
Chair, you're not gonna stay the first night in.
No, see, I'm starting late from council.
Oh, okay.
3 o'clock, I got function over there, 3:34.
Oh, I know.
And then to stay at Moab,
Yeah.
and then drive home.
Okay. But you'll be there the following night.
Yeah. But you're going to?
Well, I don't know, if I can attend by remotely, I will, but if I have to, because it's a work session, so,
Okay.
yeah, I don't think I think we're gonna have a call in, but no, yeah, okay. You gonna go over there?
So you can call it?
Yeah.
I don't, see, I don't think I can, well, you'll be there.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just a work session, so. Yeah, I'll be the recorder, which is, I always do anyway, so.
It's just that last week was such a fuss with everybody, all the speakers office, and so I was like, I think I have to go.
Well, I mean, that's